Whoa, whoa, whoa. Unit 8, Aquatic and Terrestrial Pollution. We're going to cover the difference between point pollution source and non-point source pollution. Let's define it. Point source pollution would be a single identifiable source of a pollutant. Non-point source would be a source that diffused and can therefore be difficult to identify. So examples, we have the smokestack, waste discharge pipe, for non-point source we also have pesticide spraying, urban or farm runoff, define range of tolerance. Why is it important for species to be in their optimal ranges? So I'm going to write it down here. The range of tolerance is the ideal range of abiotic conditions under which a species can survive, grow, and reproduce. Beyond range of tolerance, no reproduction, stress can occur, and perhaps even death. So, describe each of these human impacts and how it affects coral. Increasing ocean temperatures. The definition of that is simply that the ocean is warming. Due to climate change. How does this impact coral? It reduces the range of tolerance, so they die off. Sediment runoff, soil runoff into waterways. This reduces light penetration for photosynthesis within the coral. Remember, corals are animals and they live mutualistically with these zoo something and then those species can utilize photosynthesis to provide food for the coral. Destructive fishing processes, trawling, drag nets, destroys ocean bottom, damages reefs. How does oil affect marine organisms such as birds and marine mammals? Well, it causes organisms to die due to hydrocarbons in oil, coats feather and fur, which inhibits their movement and kills bottom-dwelling organisms. Number 5. How do oil spills hurt the economy and why? So it damages tourism, and the fishing industry. What is an ocean dead zone and how are they created? So the dead zones along the ocean are often due to excess fertilizers in runoff that eventually make their way to the ocean. This has a massive detrimental impact on coastal fisheries and the communities that rely on this as a source of income. It also impacts tourism to these areas as recreational and sport fishing is not viable in dead zones. Definitely ran out of room there, so I'm going to write down number 7 at the very bottom. So 7 said, how is an oxygen sag curve created? Describe using the diagram. So an oxygen sag is a plot of dissolved oxygen levels versus the distance from a source of pollution, usually excess nutrients and biological refuse. Number 8. How does heavy metal mercury enter into waterways? What is methylmercury? Why is this harmful? So I'm going to start off at the very top there, and let's answer it. So how does heavy metal mercury enter the waterway? Through acid mine drainage, as well as burning fossil fuel. Methyl mercury is elemental mercury that is absorbed by bacteria. and is converted into a form that is highly toxic to animals and humans. Once it is in bacteria, these will be consumed by other organisms and make its way into the food chain. Nine, how does litter affect aquatic ecosystems? Describe at least two effects. So, litter that reaches aquatic ecosystems besides being unsightly, can create intestinal blockage and choking hazards for wildlife and introduce toxic substances to the food chain. Number 10, how does sediment pollution lead to less light penetration? Why can this be harmful to primary producers? So increased sediment in waterways can reduce light infiltration which can affect primary producers and visual predators. Sediments can also settle, disrupting habitats. What are endocrine disruptors? So, endocrine disruptors are chemicals that can interfere with the endocrine system of animals. So number 12, what are the effects of endocrine disruptors on humans? So let's talk about that. And I'm going to write it right here at the very bottom for more room. When absorbed in the body, an endocrine disruptor can decrease or increase normal hormone levels. It can also mimic the body's natural hormones or alter the natural production of hormones. Number 13. List 2 ecological services of wetlands. So, water purification, and flood protections and protection of habitats. Then 14. What are some threats to mangroves? So, threats would be the desire to live on the coast. So that would be humans desiring to live. That would cause construction and thus the manipulation of the natural habitat. Then we also have the destruction to make fish farms or aquaculture. Number 15. Describe the circumstances that will result in cultural eutrophication. So, excess fertilizer runoff, enriched with nitrates or phosphates, as well as industrial runoffs. So for number 16, it says make a eutrophication flow diagram by showing the steps that lead to oxygen depletion and fish deaths. Start with increase in nitrates and phosphates. So the runoff with excess nitrates or phosphates gets into the local waterways. This leads to something called the algae bloom, where a lot of algae grows all at once due to the excess nutrients available in the water. And that follows with the massive die-off of algae, and then bacteria starts to decompose the algae, increasing biological oxygen demand. That causes a decrease in dissolved oxygen, which leads to fish death. Okay, so number 17. What is hypoxia? Simply put, a lack of oxygen. Compare eutrophic to oligotrophic waterways. So we have 3 waterways, y'all. Eutrophic is considered to have a body of water that is enriched with minerals and nutrients. We also have mesotrophic. That is a body of water with moderate nutrients, and then oligotrophic is considered to be a body of water with very low nutrient levels. So very low nutrient levels simply means that there's a little support of life. Moderate means moderate support of life, and then eutrophic would have all sorts of life. Define thermal pollution. So thermal pollution is simply water that is warmer than the original habitat. And this could be caused by many things, y'all. Many things. Explain how thermal pollution is produced by power plants. So that is one way. Let's go with 20, and I'm going to write 20 right below 21 here. So water is removed from a river or stream to provide cooling to a manufacturer or electrical plant and then returned, or when treated, wastewater is released into the waterways. It is often at an elevated temperature. 21. What is the relationship between water temperature and oxygen amounts? So, the warmer the water, the less oxygen gas the water can hold. And this is due to the heat 'em up, speed 'em up concept, y'all. Water moving faster cannot hold the gas in. The gases are already moving very fast. So if there's a lot of movement with the water, then the gas can easily escape that water. I would like you guys to think of the soda. Okay, we want it cold because cold equals very fizzy. Warm equals flat, so there's no gas in there. Define POP, or persistent organic pollutants. These are chemicals that are primarily products and byproducts from industrial processes. Chemical manufacturing and resulting waste. Some have been intentionally created for specific purposes, but there are some that are unintentional produced and are now in the environment. Since they don't break down, easily in nature, they stick around for a long period of time. 23. Why do persistent organic pollutants not break down easily in the environment? So I'm going to write 23 right here, y'all. So the reason why is because the POPs are synthetic carbon-based molecules. Examples would be DDT and PCBs. 24. How do POPs bioaccumulate? So POPs can be toxic to organisms because they are soluble in fat, which allows them to accumulate in organisms' fatty tissues. Okay, we're going to compare bioaccumulation to biomagnification. So let's define it. Bioaccumulation is within a single organism resulting in a higher concentration of the chemical in older individuals. Whereas biomagnification takes place as chemicals transfer from lower trophic levels to higher trophic levels within a food web, resulting in a higher concentration in apex predators. Number 26. Explain how the biomagnification of DDT led to the demise of the bald eagle population in the US. So levels of DDT magnified in the food chain and ultimately connected it to the massive bird kills and thinning of the eggs in the population. Number 27. How is human... Okay. 27. How is human health affected by biomagnification? Use mercury or PCBs to describe. So, okay, so humans, okay, humans are exposed to methyl mercury from eating contaminated fish. The fish is contaminated by eating smaller organisms that are contaminated with mercury. Mercury persists in the system thus magnifying as it travels up the food chain. So the effects of ingesting mercury could cause, so effects, tremors, memory loss, insomnia, and headaches. And can also harm the kidneys and thyroid. What is solid waste? So solid waste is defined as any discarded material that is not a liquid or gas. It is generated in domestic, industrial, business, and agricultural sectors. How is a sanitary landfill constructed? Make sure to include the words liner, water collection, leachate, cap, and methane. So I'm going to write it right here, y'all. The landfill is lined with a layer of clay at the bottom to prevent leachate from seeping through to the water supply. to prevent rainwater from getting into the landfill, a storm drainage can be installed. An impermeable layer caps the filled landfill. There are methane collection pipes to prevent the buildup of natural methane. So, number 30, what is e-waste and how can e-waste be reduced? So, e-waste is simply electronic waste. Examples would be batteries, computers. These may contain hazardous materials such as lead and mercury. How can e-waste be reduced? E-waste can be recycled for their parts. 31. List 4 characteristics that will result in waste being classified as hazardous. So we have ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, or toxicity. Number 32. How can countries incinerate trash to generate electricity? So, trash is burned to create steam to turn a turbine connected to a generator. Similar to burning fossil fuel to create that steam in order to turn the turbine to create that generator, or to turn the generator to create the electricity. What is wrong with ocean dumping? Why do countries do this? And what has this practice created in our oceans? So, if garbage is dumped into the ocean, the oxygen in the water could be depleted. This results in poor health for marine life due to a lack of oxygen. Okay, why do countries do this? countries do this due to the lack of sanitary landfills. What has this practice created in our oceans? Just excess bottles and plastics in the water that can suffocate or choke sea creatures. 34. Where's the 3 components for integrated waste management? So the 3 are: 1, source reduction; 2, recycling and composting; 3, waste transportation and landfilling. 35. What are some advantages and disadvantages to recycling? So, reduces demand for new stuff, reduces energy use, reduces landfill volume. Disadvantages would be it is costly, requires energy, and finally takes time and energy to sort. 36. What is composting? How does it reduce the amount of waste in landfills? And what are some drawbacks to composting? So, composting is getting rid of organic matter, food waste, paper, yard waste, in a controlled fashion. Takes time, space, has to be done properly. Can smell and draw pests. Number 37. Why is methane production from bacterial decomposition beneficial at landfills? So it can be burned to generate electricity. Let's label this sewage treatment plant. So we have raw sewage. This right here is called a bar screen. Removes as much solid from the liquid as possible. And then the grit chamber. And finally the settling tank. The combination of the 3 is the primary treatment. We have the sludge that settles out and it gets digested here. So this is the sludge digester. And then this is the sludge drying bed. And then we have that as being disposed of in landfill. Oceans, or applied to croplands, pasture, or rangeland. Then we have the aeration tank, settling tank, the chlorine disinfection tank, and this tank is designed to kill bacteria, so this is the activated sludge that goes to the aeration tank. Okay, and then this clean water, y'all, forgot to label this, secondary treatment. This clean water goes to the river, lake, or ocean. List the 3 disinfectants that are commonly used to make drinking water safe during the water treatment process. So the first one would be chlorine, the chlorine dioxide, and ozone. What is LD50? How can it be determined? So LD50, I'm going to write it right here, is the lethal dose. The dose that will kill an animal. So LD50 is specifically the median lethal dose. The dose that can kill 50% of the animals. Usually rats and mice in a test. Within a given time period. So 41, what is a dose response curve? So a dose response curve describes the effect on an organism or mortality rate in a population based on the dose of a particular toxin or drug. 42. What is the approximate LD50 dose of for the population in the graph to the right? So if we take a look to the right, y'all, the dose looks like it is approximately 20 milligrams. So describe the sources of the following diseases, disorders, pathogens, and describe the human health effects. So dysentery, the source comes from untreated sewage in streams and rivers. Severe gastrointestinal disease. Then mesothelioma, cancer caused mainly by exposure to asbestos. The effect, lung cancer. Tropospheric ozone, so it's an air pollution. Respiratory problems and reduced function of lungs. The plague, so is caused by bacteria, fleas. Okay, and the health effects are various, including death. Tuberculosis, caused by a bacteria, severe lung disease. Malaria, the vector for malaria would be the mosquito, or a parasite. Causes high fevers. The West Nile virus. Okay, so the vector would be a mosquito or virus. So, causes high fever, headache, neck stiffness, stupor, disorientation, coma, tremors, convulsions, muscle weakness, vision loss, numbness, and paralysis. So West Nile does a number. Then severe acute respiratory syndrome. We can get from infected fluids. Causes respiratory diseases. Middle East respiratory syndrome is from a virus. Or zoonotic. Causes respiratory diseases. The Zika virus, the vector for the Zika virus is a mosquito caused by a virus. And then causes fever, rash, headache, and joint pain. Cholera, so causes bacterial infected water. And end result is severe gastrointestinal disease. Okay, y'all, that's it for today. Have a good one.